You know what it is. Welcome back to the Business Podcast. Our special guest this week is Alfredo Segura, Superintendent of New Frontiers Public Schools. I'm joined today by our Chair-elect Robby Brown. The South Chamber is once again pleased to present The Business. Once again, welcome back to the Sydney Brooks Studios. We're looking a lot more official. If you're noticing, this is our 5th episode, and we're stepping up the game. I am today joined by our Chair-elect for 2021. I can't wait to get to that year, right, Robby? Robby Brown. Robby, you mind introducing our guest, getting some questions going?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to clarify one thing real quick. It's not Robby Brown. It's not Bobby Brown. It's Robby Brown, as I usually say.
If you're familiar with our chamber events, you've been to an event, and if the icebreaker from Robby Brown is not to be confused with Bobby.
That's right. But speaking of professional and stepping our game up, you can actually see that we've got suits on today, and our guest here, Alfredo Segura, he's always well-dressed. And so it's a pleasure to have you in the studio today, and so glad to have you. We've seen you around, obviously, a lot during the chamber events. You guys are very engaged, and we have a representation on our board and stuff. So thank you for being here this morning.
Well, thank you, Robby, and thank you, Al, for having me here. It's always great when I can come to your office and actually see you in person. You know, with COVID-19, that's been kind of missing. So great to see you guys, and thank you for clarifying the Bobby Brown story.
Do you have any nicknames?
You know, none that I can say. I guess on the podcast, you know, depends who I'm talking to. But I know A2. But
well, you know, before we talk about New Frontiers, getting to know you, you are a community leader. You are leading a significant public school system here on the Southside, one that's been around for 20 years. A lot of people don't know that, but 20 plus years. But you're from Cotulla originally, or?
I am. You know, thank you. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that. You know, if you give me the latitude of kind of going off
a little bit, yeah. We got
time. So I'm originally from Cotulla, born and raised there, and I was just out there, took a personal day to go take care of some personal business out there, and got the opportunity to speak to my mom and dad and say hello.
How are they doing?
They're doing well, but you know, the city, I was amazed. It's been with the oil boom and so forth, you know, ups and downs.
Sure.
But it's still wonderful. Great to have gone over there.
So from Cotulla to, I'm assuming obviously higher education, you went and studied. Where'd you go to school?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, I've attended Arleta Lake University, St. Mary's, and A&M Commerce.
Okay. Where's that's in Commerce City? Is that or where's A&M Commerce?
I believe so. Right. I took it online, so I kind of did the online thing, you know.
It's in East Texas, yes.
Okay.
East Texas.
There you go. Good enough. Well, and so then career path led you to say public education is this is what I want to do for a living?
Yeah, well, you know, I was in banking prior to this, so let me tell you a little background about myself. So I am the proud son of migrant workers. My parents were migrant workers. And so I actually went to school and hit the workforce as on the finance. And so I did that for some years, made a little money. And so then I came back and said, you know, it's my time to come back and give back to the community. And so such was my life. And so in 1998, I became part of New Frontiers Public Schools and have been there since.
Good deal. Bob, this is your turn, man. I've been asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, I love that this is called The Business, right? And we have New Frontiers Public Schools here with us, you know, and Alfredo, you sharing a little bit of your past, you know, coming from the business side. How do you bring that into what y'all do from a daily perspective? Because I've seen that. I've interacted with y'all and how professional and just the guidelines that y'all put in place.
Well, you know, a lot of people think about education and they don't see the business aspect of it. So I'm glad to be sharing, obviously, the podcast called The Business. But when you really start looking at it, you know, even our school, as small as it might be, we're still running a $6 million budget. You know, so it's not that we're dealing with thousands, we're dealing with millions.
Right.
And these are taxpayer monies. And so taking the mindset of a business and making sure that we're still profitable so that we can continue obviously we're doing something right if we've been here for over 20 years.
Right. Well, and I thank you for bringing up taxpayers. There's always these misconceptions between private schools, which are traditionally in the religious space, Catholic private schools, and then public schools itself, the school districts. You are a public school to that extent that the folks that choose to enroll with you do have a tax subsidy, if you will, to be able to attend your school. Correct?
Yes, thank you so much for saying that. And I do agree with you. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. Yeah. So again, to reiterate what you mentioned, we are a public school. So a lot of people say charter. Also, does that mean that's a private school? Right. Even in this day and age, I mean, we started back in 1995.
I can imagine back then, yeah.
But yes, so while we're not able to levy taxes like an ISD, the money trail sometimes follows that student, right, which thus starts that whole argument between whose money is it?
Sure, fair enough. But I mean, to that extent, the accountability standards per student are still monitored by the state, and you're still
absolutely, yeah. So all full accountability, very transparent to the agency. So it is taxpayer money. We only receive state and federal funds. There are some, again, talking about business, sometimes we do go out to the business community and seek, obviously, donations or
sure,
philanthropic monies.
Sure, and most schools do the same. So the mission of New Frontiers, it's on the South Side. Can you just elaborate more? Why 20 years? Why still on the South Side?
Yeah. So I'm going to keep it real with you.
Please,
sometimes guests come in and they'll tell you the regurgitation of that mission statement.
Sure.
Ours is very simple. We're preparing students for college. We want to take them through that journey to and through. I tell you this because we have a pre-K through 12 program, just like anybody out there, SAISD, Harlandale, or even other schools, IDEA, etc. The difference, though, that I like to say where we kind of set ourselves apart is while others are actually preparing their students to go to college, guess what? Our students are in college with a relationship that we've been very blessed to have with Palo Alto and ACCD.
Mm-hmm. And a namesake of the Accelerated Academy, do you want to tell the story behind that? We know on the South Side he's very significant. We've honored him as a legend. We also are very fond of his son, I think, who is involved in your leadership. Do you want to explain a little bit about that history?
Yeah, so a little bit about the background. So we have two campuses, the Franco Matla Accelerated Collegiate Academy, which we service pre-K through 8th grade. And then the Frank Matla Early College High School, obviously the high school in partnership with ACCD and Palo Alto. But the Frank Matla name, as you know, has been just a legacy that he left behind. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he was a teacher at heart before he went to serve for the people. But his goal was to make sure that the great equalizer stood present here in the South Side of San Antonio. And that gives us great pride because he brought in, obviously, Texas A&M San Antonio,
yes, sir,
and was instrumental in getting Palo Alto. And so we wanted to carry that legacy and be part of that. And his son actually serves on the board. I'm very proud to, walk alongside with him and work on the governance of the institution. But he too has been around here. He is a physician and carrying on that legacy. So great to have him on our board and great to have his name.
And so most schools, districts have boards. You want to tell a little bit about your board of directors, the composition?
Yeah. So board of directors, first of all, we are a nonprofit organization before anything. So before we can even have a charter, let me explain that kind of behind the scenes. So before you actually can apply for the charter, you have to make sure that there's going to be a panel of people, obviously your board of trustees, to make sure that they're responsible for the governance. And we're blessed to have 5 people. The first one, as we were talking about, Dr. Frank L. Matla, who is a physician here in San Antonio. We have Mr. Harold Oliver. He is a lobbyist and helped actually the late senator bring Texas A&M to San Antonio.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think you guys know this next guy, Mr. Joe Pena,
Frost Bank.
Yeah.
So,
I think I've heard his name before once or twice.
There might be a picture of him here somewhere.
Yeah.
I think you guys can vouch for him.
Yes.
Mr. Pena has been very instrumental in our work. Kathy Rodriguez, who is the Deputy Historic Preservation Officer.
I know Kathy, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Your building was historically designated, and or you guys won some kind of award for your restoration, right? Or?
Yeah, don't get me in trouble. All kidding aside, so what he's talking about is our building is eligible to be part of the historic preservation. We have not elected just yet.
Sure.
We're kind of fighting it to the end.
Well, and I'm on HGRC, so I understand why. But no, I mean, where I was going with this is that you restored an old campus.
Absolutely.
And it's gorgeous. I mean,
so what I understand from the building, the original site was actually established in 1921, if I'm not mistaken, and then there was 2 separate sections that eventually got added to it. But back around 2010 or so, we actually did a renovation, and it's beautiful inside. So if you haven't gotten a chance, please, I invite you to come in.
Well, I was going to interject real quick because when we were there for the ribbon cutting for Frank L. Madela, I don't know if y'all remember that.
Yeah,
that was maybe 2 years ago now.
Well, we had a mixer too, I think.
Yes, it was inside.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I mean, it's a gorgeous building, and it was your birthday.
It was my birthday.
Do you remember that?
And
the
you
mariachi.
Oh, that's right. We did.
I have a video of that. It's a very fond memory for sure.
No doubt about it. It's Southside.
So that's one of the things that I do remember that. It was our mariachi group, which we have, and it was our students and of course our teacher that came in.
Well, keep bragging. What else makes y'all unique? I mean,
so my last board member though, was Monica Ayala, and she serves with PAC, so I'd be remiss if I did not mention her. But she is our newest member. So we wanted to make sure that we stay connected from that end. And so
it seems like a broad spectrum of talented folks that know how to keep everything going.
Yeah.
But so back to it. What makes the schools unique, you would say?
Yeah. So again, I think that while others are preparing their students to be in college, our students are in college. So I think when we talk about what can we bring that is different, our students are actually walking in the shoes of maybe their parents, their uncles, anyone that might be slightly older but are attending college right now. Sure. And so the biggest takeaway that I feel that we bring to the table is that confidence boost, because I can see our students from 8th grade that when you ask them something, they look down, sir, yes, sir, or, they're not sure.
Sure.
By the end of the first semester, freshman year, they're looking at you right in the eye and telling you, sir, I'm going to be this, that, and the other. And so from a social emotional, which I think is very critical in today's society, I think that's what separates us from the PAC, because we're actually doing what we said we did, not preparing you.
I got you.
And then in the lower grades, of course, that goes without saying. We work pretty much individually because we have smaller classes. We're actually, diagnosing, assessing where are the gaps, and basically attacking those gaps accordingly.
You want to ask the 2020 question?
The 2020 question? Well, I want to jump into something real quick, because I think a lot of what you've been speaking about is really what I was sold on years ago. I'm not from San Antonio originally, coming here from the Dallas area 5 years ago and kind of seeing what was going on the Southside. I got locked in and engaged, and the Chamber's priorities have been for the last 5 years, the top one has always been education. So I think it's neat to get to connect and hear what New Frontier Public Schools is doing. What is the impact? I really wanted you to be able to share, because looking at all the kids, as your simple mission is to get them to go to college,
right,
which is an impact for a lot of businesses here with the workforce development and all the different folks that we have, and those partnerships that you guys are bringing. I think it's a big part of why, from Documentation and all these other businesses, we've been so intrigued and so, thankful for how you're doing these things.
So I think that we are still looking at what that impact is going to be within our businesses when we continue to start looking and follow those trends. But what I can tell you right now, though, you speak about the impact. just alone in our last graduating class of 2020, collectively, they received about $3.5 million in scholarships.
Wow.
So that's an impact.
It is
an impact in our society. About 101 college acceptances. And our students collectively have earned about 3,400 college hours. But here's, again, the impact. The biggest thing about this impact is that we've saved, believe it or not, in our small community, we've saved our families over $300,000.
That adds up.
In college tuition.
That's amazing.
So anytime that we can do that, not only in the south side of San Antonio, but anywhere, you're making an impact.
It's a significant economic impact, and you do talk about our side of town that we're still working through a lot of these mobility issues, so to speak, that you hear that great divide continue to get talked about. But when you mentioned that 300 staying in our community, that those hardworking folks, God bless their hardworking kids for getting that scholarship, that those hardworking folks can keep that money here and shop here and still use that money here, and that's a big deal. And
Al, that's another important thing that sometimes we as an organization need to be better about doing this, and kind of putting it out there for everybody. But when you said going back, how do we set ourselves apart? We are from here. We're not an organization that is coming from out of state, or a management company.
Sure.
We are, and the people that run this organization, like myself, have been in the shoes of those students. And I think, not to discredit anybody,
I understand where you're coming from.
But I think that it is very important that we can share the same visions, but more importantly, that we can share those same challenges and be telling our parents, like the great Cesar Chavez, si se puede.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, the 2020 question, I said, the one that you got to ask. How are you adjusting right now with COVID? Obviously, scaling back into the classroom is happening, statewide. But what's going on at New Frontiers?
Well, that's the loaded question. Even before we got here, I was talking to Robby right before we were coming out here. Yeah. And, it's the loaded question. Let me try to answer it this way. I think, number one, we've joined our educational peers across not only the city of San Antonio, this state of Texas, but across the nation in trying to do something that the education community was not ready. So let me take you through, I guess, the journey.
Sure.
So, if somebody had told us that after spring break, we needed to come back and basically turn education upside down and erect a new system that would be designed for remote instruction. I tell you, there's no way that we can do that.
Right.
But, fortunate for who we are as educators, we did not have a choice. And so within a very small time, we were able to turn around. Is the system perfect? Absolutely not.
Right.
But
is the situation perfect?
Exactly. So I think for this year, to answer your question, one of the things that I told my principals, our teachers, and even our community is we're going to manage with 3 very simple guiding principles. Number one, health and safety. Because if we're not healthy and our place is not safe, then no matter what we do, that goes out the door.
Right.
So we've been following protocols, not only CDC, state level, and equally important, the City Health District Metropolitan Department, so that we have those systems in place. You can go to our website. It is very posted. We're transparent. One of the things that we continue to do is we have what's called a screener. It is on people's phones. You can find it online. So before you even go to our campus, whether you're a student, a teacher, or even a visitor, you have to take that screener. And that's just not only peace of mind, but it's only as good as your honesty.
Sure, of course.
So that's principle number one.
I've heard about that. It's an app, right?
So
or something like that, or a website, web-based.
It's web-based.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For me, I keep it as a shortcut on my phone, and I take it every day. And basically, what the CDC is recommending. Do you have a temperature? Have you been in contact? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's there. So again, guiding principle number one: health and safety. That's our first priority. Number two. One of the things that I mentioned to the district was we have to absolutely exercise grace and patience. And somebody's, might say, what the heck are you talking about, grace and patience in education? It should be all about education. And I tell them, let's stop right there. We don't know what the other person that's looking at you from a distance or right in front of you, you don't know what they're facing and their challenges in the midst of COVID-19. They could have been, they could have lost a loved ones that impacts them directly.
Right.
So before you can educate that student, you need to make sure that your social emotional component of the inner child is there and solid. On the same token, we're also asking our families that, if we dropped a ball on something, we are human beings too, and our teachers might be going through the same challenges that they are. And so when we talk about grace and patience, that should be reciprocated both ways.
Sure, and I think that's hugely important, especially on our side of town, that never mind COVID, a lot of our folks the households are faced with certain situations that we, again, might not even know about, and exhibiting that is a big deal.
A simple example of this is during the summer we continued our lunch program, but we opened it up to the community. It wasn't just for our students. We opened it up for the community, and we did have a line. Yeah. And obviously there's a need. I mean, you saw that all over the news. Even the food bank, there's huge lines.
Right.
And we continue to do that. So again, grace and patience. And then lastly, the third principle is about academic focus. So yes, that's what we do. We're an education entity or business, and so we need to make sure that we continue that, but not at the cost of compromising the other two. So it's not as if we're going to take the lackadaisical approach to education, but that we're going to be focused and centered on the first two before academic focus.
Well, and thank you for sharing that. And I know we ourselves as a chamber, gathering crowds is kind of what we do. And so we are also being very, cognizant and mindful of the data and everything that you mentioned. And there's shout out to our city government, our state government, federal government. I think everybody's trying their absolute best. This is unprecedented, but
Al, and sorry to interrupt, but the other thing too regarding this on the academic focus, I'm pretty sure you have been watching the news, but the Texas Education Agency was very specific about they wanted to make sure what are you going to put in these plans on how you're going to educate. And so just like every other ISD or charter, we had to submit what's called an asynchronous plan. And so we did that with synchronous and asynchronous. So for the non-educators, synchronous is, let's say that we're all in a room and we're basically learning the same thing at the same time, thus the name synchronous.
Gotcha.
Asynchronous is I can pre-record something, whether that is audio, video, or even just a lesson that I can put on there on a site, which is called a learning management system. And then the student can go back that day or even a later day and start their education that way. So we've had to do that as one of the things to ensure that academic focus is delivered accurately, because as far as we know, as of yet, STAR tests is still on.
Gotcha. Well, aside from folks from the business community supporting your mission and getting involved in your leadership, I think that's a critical component. My father ran for our local school district back home. He's a businessman. He's first and foremost a businessman, but he always stressed that importance. We have to run this like a business. Every dollar matters, and these kids matter. And so commend you guys for everything you're doing. How else can we be more supportive as a business community?
Yeah. So, in the midst of COVID or this pandemic, I know it can be very challenging. But any business that's out there that's listening, or even to the chamber, how we can help is because we're college-based and college-focused, we want to work or continue working with businesses that can allow some sort of, let's say, internships or even just the opportunity for our students to go and know, because that's one of the biggest things. How can you look for a career if I don't know what's out there?
Right.
And so I would ask for businesses that want to support your local public schools, which includes us as charters as well, to reach out to New Frontiers, because we certainly have the college-going kids that would really take up on that. So that's number one. Number two, obviously monetary or in-kind donations to the organization. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, New Frontiers is a nonprofit organization, so we're always accepting donations. In fact, we were just part of the Big Give, and you
have a great golf tournament too.
We do,
yeah. Mario Mandela, shout out.
And that reminds me, I think you played. You have a mean game.
No, I mean I'm okay.
Was that Robby? I don't remember.
Definitely not me.
And then third is we're always looking for just supporters. I call them friends of the board, because in case that somebody's rolling off the board, we've already established some sort of connection.
Sure.
You know what the school is like and what we do. And so if we never ever need anybody, then somebody comes in because we already know them.
Gotcha. Well, we're getting close to the minute mark. Are you accepting applications?
We are accepting. There's a limited amount of space in grades kinder through 8th grade. We are at capacity at our early college high school. However, though, I do want to say that if you're interested in that program, please get on the waiting list.
Gotcha.
And you can do that by calling 210-533-3655. That's the main line. You can go to our website, www.newfrontierspublicschools.org, or you can go on Facebook.
Any parting words, shout outs you want to give?
I just want to say thank you both for the opportunity. Love the great work that you guys continue to do with the Chamber, and more importantly, the growth that's happening in the south side of San Antonio. Just to be a part of this that's happening within the growth the last couple of years, again, we feel blessed. And those of you that are looking for a wonderful place for education, come find us. We are doing tours. One of the things that I think it was a blessing of this pandemic was that if you don't feel comfortable right now coming face-to-face, although we do have face-to-face, you can come 100% remote. So if you're being pushed, come to New Frontiers. We'll keep you remote.
Robby, you want any parting words, sir?
Well, I was just going to say, I think Alfredo definitely gave us the business today.
Yes, he did, the honest business.
A lot of wisdom. I love the grace and patience. So I was going to say preach. And, that's so good because, organizations can only be as great as their people. And I think I would only want to share that New Frontiers Public Schools really emphasizes the people, the community, and you can see that he's the real deal. Alfredo is the real deal. He cares about this community. He cares about the South Side, and he cares about the students, and he builds a team around them. And I've interacted with several of them, and we have Mario on our board. So, we're proud supporters from the Chamber's perspective, and we're certainly rooting y'all on to continue on. And the only last thing I want to add is we do have 3 musicians in the room. I don't know if we were aware of that, but
well, I play the trumpet.
Al's the trumpeter.
You play guitar, right?
I play guitar and I sing.
And I play guitar and sing too.
Oh,
so
right.
I feel like we missed out here. We should have been doing something more musical.
Three amigos.
That could be the next podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
We'll take
the musicians.
The next iteration. That's
This
right.
does that too. Hey, well, I personally want to thank both of you for being involved in this organization. Echo a lot of those comments is our culture is very much embodied by the people around us. And so when organizations like yours share those kind of values, it trickles into ours. And so it's a joy to be down here on the South Side. Things are changing fast, like you said. And I wish New Frontiers all the best of luck in this challenging school year, but hopefully we get back to normal in 2021, and spring break is just spring break.
If nothing else, that's what we'll be looking for, right? Just a break.
Yes, sir.
Thank you both. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words, and we're here to stay in the community.
Thank you. And I want to thank the audience for joining us today. This is The Business. You were joined by our Chair-elect for 2021, Robby Brown, and Superintendent Alfredo Segura from New Frontiers Public Schools. Please check them out on their website, newfrontierspublicschools.com, and you can also check us out on our website, southsa.org. Thank you once again for being with us. You have been given the business.